Hello, welcome to Module 6, our very last week. I can't believe it. Wow. I don't want you to freak out when you see this module. It looks like there's a lot of stuff here, but it's really, I promise you, it's not bad. Okay. So this week we are focusing on the aftermath of the Civil War, and gosh, there is way too many things that we could deal with, and so I'm trying to focus on two sort of big picture issues. The first is, of course, Reconstruction. How do we reconstruct the United States after ripping it in half, metaphorically, ripping it in half, and really, this horrific bloodshed, right? How do we rebuild after considering each other enemies for 4 years and killing each other in really horrific ways? How do we come back together as a nation, even on a person-in-person basis, right? Like, how do we start to accept the fact that Southerners are our fellow Americans? Of course, the biggest issue of all is, what do we do with these 4 million freed people? Where are they going to go? What do we owe them? What do they deserve? What rights do they deserve from this country? Are they citizens? Do they have the same rights as everyone else? Are they going to live side by side with us? How are we going to do this, right? And this sounds maybe a little precious on my part, but I'm really not trying to be overly simplistic here. These are really critical questions during Reconstruction. These really simple things about, what are we going to do with these people, right? Where are they going to go? Where are they going to live? What kind of work are they going to do? What are the rules going to be now? All of those things have to be decided in the post-Civil War era. And it becomes sort of a crucible where American citizenship is tried. And we understand better what it means to be an American citizen because of Reconstruction. We also understand better what can happen to American citizenship because of Reconstruction. How fragile American citizenship can be, we learn during Reconstruction. Okay, so what are we actually doing this week? You will see, the first thing you'll see when you go into Module 6 is our 3 videos. There are 3 music videos. The first is a instrumental, it's a fiddle song called Ashokan Farewell. If you have ever seen Ken Burns' documentary, very famous documentary of the Civil War, you probably watched some of it in high school, then you have heard this song before. It will probably ring a bell when you hear it. The second is a song called The Battle of Antietam, which is, actually, let me jump back to Ashokan Farewell for a second. Ashokan Farewell is from that documentary, Ken Burns' Civil War, but it is not a Civil War song. It was not written during the Civil War. It was never performed during the Civil War. It is a fiddle tune that was written in the 1980s. Okay? The second one, The Battle of Antietam, that is a song that originated during the Civil War. This version of it is sort of reinterpreted and performed in 2013. The third song you have is Oh Freedom, which is an old, quote unquote, Negro spiritual that we believe originated in the days after emancipation. And this particular version of it is performed by Harry Belafonte, who's a famous singer in the 1960s, but also a really famous civil rights activist during the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Okay, so why am I making you listen to all these songs? Your goal here, and I ask you to do this in the blog, is to listen to all 3 of these songs and to compare them and to think about, what story is each one of these videos trying to tell through music? What version? If we think about the Civil War as being versions of the Civil War. We have different versions of what the war meant, what it was like. What are they? What version are they trying to portray in each one of these songs? What do they make you think of? What feelings does it evoke? Why do you think it's doing that? Why do we have different versions of the Civil War? So what I'm trying to tap into here is something that we call memory. Well, that sounds stupid, but something that historians think of as memory or historical memory. And what we mean by that is the way that groups of people or nations or communities remember communally an event that took place. How does a country try to make sense of something that's happened in their past? What stories do they tell about it? How do they remember it as a group? And that's what I'm trying to tap into with those three songs. You're also getting into historical memory in an article that you have here called "We Should Grow Too Fond of It," or "Why We Love the Civil War." And this is a historian named Drew Gilpin Faust reflecting back on why Americans love the Civil War so much. Why is there such a thing as Civil War buffs? Maybe some of you consider yourself Civil War buffs. Why is that a thing? Why are so many people so fascinated with this war? And then you also have an article here called "The Motionless Ghosts That Haunt the South." And this is a very topical, short article about Confederate statues that still line streets in some cities and towns in the South, and what that does to people growing up in the South, what that kind of growing up in the shadow of the Confederacy, what does that do to people? Of course, we also have to tackle Reconstruction and what Reconstruction means, particularly for Black Americans. You have here a documentary episode. It's about just under an hour long. It's the first part of a multi-part documentary on the birth of Jim Crow, the set of racist laws that exist in the South after Reconstruction ends. You're only watching this first part, which will bring you from the end of the Civil War about more or less up to 1900. And it will talk about Reconstruction and the end of Reconstruction and what happens in the meantime. In order to try to wrap your head around the details of what Reconstruction was, the laws and the policies that made up Reconstruction, you have an article here by Eric Foner, who is sort of the guy when it comes to Reconstruction. He's sort of the expert. So we have a short article from the New York Times about Reconstruction here. And then two primary sources. One is a very, very brief, it's like 3 paragraphs long, essay by Walt Whitman, sort of America's poet, called "The Real War Will Never Get in the Books." Or at least that's what it's been come to call. That's what it's been come. No, what am I trying to say? That is what it has come to be called. Oh my God, it's getting too late in the evening for me. That's what it's come to be called, is "The Real War Will Never Get in the Books." This is Walt Whitman ruminating after the war on future generations and how future generations will attempt to understand the Civil War. And his lament is that they won't. They'll never understand it. There's no way to understand it. The last thing you have is this really powerful letter from a former slave named Jordan Anderson writing back to his master. The letter is Jordan Anderson sort of saying to his former master, "No, I'm not going to come back home. I'm not going to come back home and work for you." His master had apparently asked him to come back and work. And so I really want you to dig into the meat of this letter. What is he saying? What are his not demands, but what are his responses to his former master asking him to come home? You have just one blog for this week, digging into all of those things, and then of course you have your final exam coming up soon. I would love to talk to you more about the final exam. If you have any questions at all, please come find me, talk to me. Please let me help you get ready for that exam if you're nervous about it at all, okay? I look forward to talking to you about all of these really fascinating things on the blog. And yeah, I'll see you.